After your family's biggest lie finally came out, did you ever trust them with the truth again? Family isn't just who you're born to. It's the stories you're told. And sometimes, it's the stories you're not allowed to remember. I didn't realize mine was a fairy tale until the ending rewrote itself overnight. Everyone's family has a character. My mom was the fixer, the one with the right answer, the right casserole recipe, the right tone on the phone. My dad was the problem solver, steady as a stone, but always ducking out to run an errand when things got heated. My sister Emily was the golden child. Perfect hair, perfect scores, even perfect freckles. If our life had a holiday card vibe, it was one of those staged shots. Arms linked, everyone dressed in blue, laughter suspended just beyond believable. There was me, Joe. I didn't have a title. Never the star, never the problem. I faded in, did my chores, brought up the rear in every school photo and family event. I convinced myself I liked it that way. Less spotlight, less responsibility if things fell apart. It turns out, sometimes being invisible is dangerous, especially when your family's greatest talent is pretending at perfection. The first real cracks showed up at Thanksgiving, 2 years ago. It was the first time you'd all been under one roof since Emily started med school. She floated in on a cloud of Instagram success and the best-smelling pie anyone in 3 counties had ever tasted. My mom beamed. She always had more pride for Emily's cooking than her MCAT score. Dad hustled around the kitchen, sniffing at the turkey. I arrived with everyone's favorite wine, craving a low profile and some mashed potatoes. Mom poured drinks. Joe, honey, bring out the placemats. Emily, show your sister the pie. As if the holiday was a play and she'd lost her script backstage. Dinner was as shiny as ever. Jokes, stories, my sister laughing so hard she nearly snorted wine through her nose while Dad tried to top her with some old camping story. But beneath the light, I felt a quiet tension, like everyone was checking their lines, terrified something would go off script. It started during dessert. I went to grab an old childhood mug from the back of the cabinet, my favorite, with the chipped handle, which Dad used to fix with superglue. It was gone. Mom, where's my mug? I asked, gentle as I could. She barely looked up. Oh, that old thing? I tossed it. It was cracked. Then, spotting my face, you don't need that junk, Joe. Start the year fresh. For a moment, it was silent. I saw Dad's fingers curl around his wine glass. Emily kept eating, but her eyes drifted away. It was small, stupid maybe, but it felt like the beginning of something big. I stayed the weekend. Friday morning, while cleaning up stray Tupperware, I realized all the little bits of our shared childhood, our goofy art projects, Dad's collection of ugly keychains, even the photo of me at the science fair, glasses askew, grinning, holding Emily's participation ribbon because she refused to pose, had vanished. The house felt scrubbed of the pieces that made us real. When I asked, Mom shrugged and said, "We're just making room for better memories, honey. It's time to grow up." I let it go, mostly out of habit. But all weekend, whenever I spoke up or disagreed, that phrase echoed, making room for better memories. Later, Emily found me on the back porch. She handed me a mug of coffee, her mug, pristine, serial killer white. She looked tired. "Do you ever feel like Mom's deleting us? Piece by piece?" she whispered, almost as if she was afraid the wind would carry it back into the house. I nodded, some knot forming in my chest. "Yeah, and I don't know why now," she shrugged. "Maybe she's scared you'll remember." She stopped herself and looked away. "What?" I pressed. "It doesn't matter," she said, voice slamming shut. "Don't let her get to you." But I couldn't let it drop. Fresh out of college, I moved back into my parents' guest room. The job market was a mess, and my old room, my real room, had already become a reading nook, with Emily's old piano and a bunch of tasteful throw pillows. Every corner of the house had been rearranged, memory scars buffed out, the door I'd painted with star stickers, now whitewashed, the squeak in the banister, fixed. Even the dent on the fridge, from the time Emily slammed it during a fight with Mom, had been replaced. Every day, it felt harder to breathe there. The house demanded silence. Its new perfection made my messiness stand out, made me feel like I was the only loose thread left behind. One day, while helping clean the attic, I found a box labeled Misc Donate. Inside were my old journals, a shoebox of the friendship bracelets Emily and I used to weave, and a lumpy sewing project labeled Dad's Super Cape for emergency only. I touched a corner, feeling a burn of anger and something deeper, like the house itself was being dressed up for sale, every scrap of personality bagged and tossed. That night, I sat in bed, reading my childhood journal, and there it was, pressed flat, a letter from Mom in her big, looping script. "Joe, you are brave. Don't ever forget who you are, even when no one else remembers. Love, Mom. P.S. Ask me about Super Cape." It felt like a dispatch from another timeline, another version of her. I tried to bring it up in casual conversation, hoping for a scrap of the warmth that gave me courage years ago. "Mom, do you remember Super Cape?" She barely looked up from her phone. "Oh, that old thing? Honestly, Joe, we've outgrown all that. You should too. Let go a little." I forced a laugh. "It's just, sometimes that stuff makes us, you know? If you get rid of everything old, doesn't it feel like faking it?" She sighed. "You're being dramatic." Picked up her mug, a new one, slate slate gray, all sharp lines, and walked out. Everyone seemed determined to pretend nothing had changed. That night, Emily and I snuck into the garage and took back the donate box. We spread everything out, plastic medals, bent Polaroids, even the broken super cape, and laughed. But it sounded different now, like white noise filling a void. Do you remember the time Mom used to write notes for our lunchboxes? I asked. Emily nodded. Now if I get a text from her, I half expect it to come with a link to an article about self-improvement. I stared at the pile, and a truth hit. If you lose all your old stories, who gets to decide what your family even means anymore? Spring came faster than I expected. I struggled through endless job applications, waking up each day doubting even basics. My education, my ability to find my footing, my worth as a grown kid living under a roof that wanted to forget me. My therapist said, "It sounds like your family is grieving something they can't admit." Have you asked that why? I hadn't. But the sense of erasure was turning into something sharper. A need to figure out what exactly my family didn't want me to remember. I started looking for the holes, the things that didn't add up, the gap between memories of warmth and the brittle present. The stories Mom dodged, the odd, stilted silences when Emily or I brought up certain years, certain birthdays. And then one night, I found the box. Not in the attic, not in a garage. It was inside an old laundry basket in the basement, under towels that hadn't seen daylight in a decade. It was heavier than it looked. When I opened it, the first thing I saw was an envelope marked in Dad's handwriting. "Joe, please talk to us before you go through this. We're not who you remember, but you deserve the truth." I stared at the box, heart pounding, the house silent as a tomb, and I realized with perfect clarity, my family had been rewriting the past. Not to protect me, but to protect themselves. I sat on the basement floor, gripping the envelope in both hands, feeling the low-level buzz of the dryer above and the ancient cold of concrete seeping up my legs. I should have stopped. The note was meant as a warning or a threshold, like the line in a fairy tale where the hero is told not to open the forbidden door. I'd always rolled my eyes at characters who couldn't resist, but with the truth pressed into my palms, I understood that kind of compulsion in my marrow. I opened it. Inside, another letter. Longer, the lines tight. Dad's handwriting sometimes slipping into Mom's in the postscript, as if they'd both written it during a moment of fear. "Joe, if you find this, we owe you an explanation. Maybe even an apology. Your mom and I, we've been trying to keep things together, and sometimes that's meant keeping the past locked away. Maybe we were wrong. I know you feel erased. I see it. If you want to know everything, come find me, not your mom. Please, I'll tell you. I'm sorry if this hurts you, but I hope it helps. Dad. P.S. Your super cape is in here for a reason. You made it for me the year everything changed. Don't be angry at your mother. She's afraid, but I trust you to handle the truth." My hands trembled. I rummaged further in the box, pulling out old clippings, newspaper articles, a hospital bracelet, several pages of medical bills with my name and Emily's at the top, a photo, Mom, younger and softer, holding both of us. Emily on her lap, me curled against her side. Dad is off to the right, trying to wedge the world's worst balloon sculpture onto Emily's tiny wrist. All three of us looked unspeakably tired. On the back, 1998, the summer we held on. Never forget you're our miracle. I remembered none of this. It would have been just before I started kindergarten. There was more. A letter addressed to Joe and Emily for someday. It was never sent. If you're reading this, it means the past finally found you. We made mistakes. So many. We tried to fix too much, but we always loved you. Both of you. Please be kind to us and be kind to each other, because family is the only thing that stays, even when every memory feels wrong. It was unsigned, but the paper smelled like Mom's lotion. I sat down with Dad the next morning, our first real conversation in months. He looked older in the kitchen light, stubble not quite shaved, eyes wary and tired. For a second, I was a kid again, coming into the kitchen before sunrise to watch him sip coffee in silence. The whole house a hush of warmth and secrets. "So," I started, then faltered, holding up the envelope like evidence at a trial. "What am I missing?" He nodded, sat forward, and pressed his palms flat on the table. "I figured you'd find that. You and your sister always were bloodhounds." He rubbed his face, then, looking at the mug I'd rescued from the donate bin, sighed. "Your mom and I, we lost a child before you were born. Emily was 3. Your brother, Michael." Time slowed. The table felt miles wide. It felt impossible that a truth so heavy had always hovered in the blank spaces of my past, just out of reach. "He was only 19 months, Dad said. His voice didn't break, but it drifted, as if the words had lost their way. "Medical stuff. We never wanted to burden you or your sister, so we tried to keep moving. Your mom handled it by making memories over, erasing pain, cleaning everything from those old years. I was just trying to keep her together, trying to keep you happy. I should have talked to you sooner." I sat, stunned, replaying decades of family stories, looking for the gaps, holidays where photos were cropped extra close. A set of baby clothes Mom never explained, a name that flared up once in a while and got cut with awkward silence. How did you not tell us? I whispered. He looked at me, eyes raw. Grief warps memory. We tried to spare you pain, and in the end, I think we just bred confusion. We sat together for a long time, both of us unsure what to say. Finally, Dad slid the super cape across the table. You made this for me the year after. You don't remember. But you insisted I could save everyone. I guess none of us knew who needed saving most. It was too much, too fast, and not enough all at once. But at least now, the silence had a name. The shape of our family wasn't just about perfection or erasure. It was about survival. That conversation cracked everything open. For days, the house felt like it was floating. Emily called, and I told her what I'd found. She listened in silence, then started crying, ugly and loud. I always thought there was something wrong with me for not feeling right at home, she managed. Like we were pretending, but I didn't know what for. We talked deep into the night, swapping half memories and stumbling old questions. Emily remembered being told she couldn't play in Michael's old room. I remembered the way Mom would leave the house on cold mornings, coming back with red eyes when she thought we were asleep. Mom avoided us at first. I tried to understand. What must it be like to love so hard your only solution is to erase the evidence of loss? But I also saw, finally, how much it cost us to live in her edited version, how much it cost her to hold onto the erasure. On a drizzly Sunday, after a week of careful negotiations and texts, Emily and I sat down with her. She walked intense, shoulders drawn, lips pressed impossibly thin. I spoke first, holding her hand and the letter from the box. We know about Michael, Dad told us. For a second, I thought she might run. Instead, she just exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for 2 decades. I thought I could keep you safe if you never had to know, she whispered. I shook my head. We needed the whole story, Mom, not just the pretty parts. Then Emily, poised shaky but alive, said, we're strong enough for the truth. Please trust us. That was when Mom broke, tears slipping down her face as she finally started telling the story. How she used to sleep clutching both our baby blankets in one hand. How some mornings, she couldn't get out of bed until Dad made her coffee. Or how she threw herself into fixing everything to distract herself. We cried with her. We let the house fill with real voices again, even if they were ugly and uncontrolled. From that night, things changed. We didn't become a Hallmark card family. There were no magical solutions. And some days, the silence hovered at the edge of every room. But now, the objects that survived, my mug, Emily's box of ribbons, even Michael's baby shoes, took on new importance. We didn't pretend, and that made it easier to breathe. Mom started pulling old photos out of hiding, not as weapons or proof, but as stories she could finally let herself remember. Sometimes she shared them. Sometimes she just held them in her lap, letting herself grieve at last. Sometimes Dad would squeeze her hand or nudge her to eat, looking more like himself than he had in years. Emily and I started making new traditions, baking disaster cookies, reviving the super cape as a joke on hard days. We even visited Michael's grave together, leaving a tangle of flowers and a letter signed from all of us. And little by little, I realized you can't move forward until you accept the parts of your own story that ache. You can't erase what hurts without erasing yourself. Now, when I look back at our family photos, the old, the doctored, and the new, I see everything. Love, loss, pain, and the slow bravery of unlearning silence. That's what I remember. That's what I'll carry. There isn't a guidebook for how to live after a secret unravels. I thought things would fall apart the second the truth came out. But instead, life quietly rearranged itself, like furniture shifting in a familiar room. New gaps, new pathways, new light. Awkward and uncomfortable at first, but not unwelcome. I moved out not long after finally landing the kind of job that felt like a beginning, not just an extension of my parents' mercy. I found a shoebox apartment with narrow windows that gave me sunrise and the city's hum. Space to figure out what life would mean without needing to erase anything behind. Emily visited on her rare weekends off. She cooked too much food and stuffed my fridge, but she also brought the old battered mug, my mug, and perched it on the sink like a tiny flag. You belong to your own history. That mug became my daily ritual. Every morning, whether sleep deprived or brimming with hope, I'd fill it with coffee and give myself a second to honor everything that brought me here. Some days I grieved for Michael, a ghost brother, now a part of our vocabulary, instead of an emptiness we tripped over. Most days, though, I just let the memory be, ordinary as freckles. Back at my parents' house, the change was gradual but real. The reading nook got a new shelf with our childhood art, yes, and those clumsy, ugly crafts that never made it into Mom's curated photos. Dad started telling longer stories at dinner, letting the awkward silences fill in where they needed. Emily and I helped reorganize the attic, this time making piles to keep, to store, and to actually throw out, with nothing hidden. Mom still had days where she'd drift. Sometimes I'd find her with that stack of letters and photos, red-eyed but not running. She even started writing cards again, messy, badly rhymed, tucked into care packages she sent to me and Emily both. Sometimes at the end she'd write, "Love you all, always, always," and sometimes a quiet, "Thank you for reminding me I'm allowed to remember." Our family celebrations changed. Birthdays began to start with a toast to all of us, an open seat at the table that nobody had to pretend wasn't there. We remembered Michael, not as a break in our story, but as proof that even in loss, love lingers. That first year, we visited his grave again on his birthday. We stood close together, awkwardly, and Dad finally said his name out loud for the first time in 2 decades. Michael, you're still part of us. No one tried to fold the pain into a lesson. We just let it be. Maybe that's the biggest lesson I learned, that pain doesn't need to become a secret, and love doesn't need perfection to endure. Family isn't about photos that look right or stories that don't make anyone uncomfortable. It's about surviving what nearly unmade you and finding each other again on the other side. Sometimes I wonder who I'd be if I'd never found the box in the basement. Maybe I'd still be chasing the comfort of invisibility, afraid, ironically, of being seen and of never being seen at all. Maybe I'd have clung to the fantasy that history was supposed to be neat, unbroken, untouched by grief. But finding the truth and facing it together gave us all a second chance. I let myself hold my past alongside my future. I started allowing for both pain and possibility. I stopped envying my sister's golden title and mom's control. I realized every survivor in my family had their own weight, their own reasons for silence, and for finally speaking out. Now, when Emily jokes about our heavily revised origin story, I laugh and say, at least we know the footnotes now. So much of adulthood, I think, is learning to forgive your parents for being scared, and maybe forgiving yourself for all the years you thought love had to be easy instead of honest. The last time my whole family was together, it was nothing special. Just dinner, some squabbling about a Netflix series, the dog under the table, laughter as stubborn and silly as always. But before dessert, Dad raised his glass, not for a toast, but just to pause. This is good, he said. All of it. Even the parts we still don't know what to do with, especially those. It wasn't profound. No revelations, no neat conclusion. Just a moment of being, of naming the story together. One that's complicated, imperfect, and finally real. If you're reading this and you feel erased by your own family's silence, or like your memories are on shaky ground, hold on, even if it hurts. Sometimes the stories we're not allowed to tell are the ones that save us. Sometimes the imperfect version is the truest one. Thanks for listening, for letting me unspool the tangled backstory, for reminding me that sometimes the best thing you can give each other is permission to remember and to keep going anyway. TLDR, my family systematically erased our difficult past, removing every trace of an older sibling I never knew about. I discovered the truth, brought it into the open, and helped us all start the long process of real healing. We are still imperfect, but finally honest. And I finally feel like I belong in my own life.